Anyway, I am Jim Dunn. I think I've already introduced myself, but I'm not sure how many people heard me. And we'll be talking about the five Buddha families today. I was trying to share the mandala image that I have on my screen here so you can see what we're talking about. Mandala is something that basically represents the world and the universe, and in this case, it represents the five Buddha families, which well, people can hear me now. I'm getting good responses. And I guess Tara's helping. Tari, Tutari, Tari, so which is kind of cool. So it's going to look at our mind as kind of a mandala, a way of examining our world or ourselves. And I wish I could share the screen here. Just one more time. It's not working. Well, anyway, we'll just go on as best I can. Well, mandala is a complex representation of the universe, with different parts of the universe representing different aspects of the Buddhist teaching. And in this case, the mandala of the five Buddha families represents basically five aspects of our Buddha nature, five ways they express themselves, or five ways we relate to the world. And at the center of the world is the Buddha, in this case. He is white and represented by the Buddha family of Virachana. Yeah, I'm sorry, I've gotten a little thrown off with the sound and everything here. So each of these families has different characteristics, different aspects. Buddha at the center represents all-encompassing wisdom, usually, and overcomes the klesha, neurosis of ignorance. And these are expressed, all of the Buddha families express both in positive ways and negative or neurotic ways, or deluded ways. And all this stuff covering up my screen. I guess I don't have permission to share my screen. So anyway, sorry about all of this. Buddha's usually represented as holding a wheel. His hands are usually in the teaching position. Represents this kind of form. So in its neurotic state, if you're Buddha, one of these, each of us is going to have all five of the Buddha families. They will manifest themselves in our way we interact with the world in various ways. But one or two is likely to be dominant. If you're primarily Buddha, You're usually, very solid. You don't react very much. Respond with intelligence, openness, presence, certain amount of wisdom. But if you have the more neurotic aspect of Buddhism, then you are a little bit out of it, a little bit at sea. You're the kind of person that you say, what do you want to do tonight? You'll say, oh, I don't care. It doesn't matter. And so that can drive people nuts. So that's sort of what the Buddha family is kind of about. And if you have questions or want to add more detail on which Buddha family you think you might be, and that's something we all kind of think about is who are we? And that's kind of the purpose of this in some ways to help us work with ourselves, identify some of our own neurotic actions and ways of relating to the world. So these are important to give some insights to that. So that's a rough overview of it. I'm going to go back over some of these again. Next, Vajra family I'll talk about a little bit is the Vajra family itself, or the Buddha family. It's the Vajra family. It's the blue one, and you can find these mandalas online, Buddha family, pretty easily. There's a number of different images. Each family has, well, I said positive and negative neurotic aspects. And Lama Adam, I guess, is going to be talking in a couple of weeks about really transforming some of the more negative glacial aspects into something more positive. So I'm just going to kind of give a quick overview today of what these are about. And so, excuse me, I seem to be having all kinds of technical difficulties today. So, the Ashford family is usually characterized by intelligence, intellectual. They're the ones that kind of like to figure out problems and deal with things in an intellectual way. The Vajra family gets, if you're in the Vajra family, you get a little bit neurotic. You're likely to have some anger issues, a little bit of sharp qualities. The symbol of the Vajra is something indestructible, anger. It's a big part of that sometimes. But it is penetrating kind of wisdom. Sometimes it's characterized as well, all accomplishing wisdom. Sometimes I think it's mirror-like wisdom, which sees the world exactly as it is. Have an erotic aspect of Vajra. We become a little possessive with our insight rather than having a sense of open perspective. Anger of Vajra neurosis could be pure aggression or a sense of uptightness because we're so attached to our opinions, our ways of thinking. The third course is Ratna, wisdom of equality. This family is concerned more with livelihood resources. Ratna translates pretty much into jewel. It represents the kind of thing. If you really have a Ratna family, you kind of want things. Could manifest as being a little bit greedy, but also being resourceful as a way of attracting resources, wealth. I'm going to talk a little bit about the title of my talk in a minute. So it's a little obscure. But if you have her right now, then you have the wisdom of equanimity. You really have wise, your past neurosis. It's more associated with the earth. Somebody compared it to a rotting log makes a home in the country. Such a log doesn't want to leave its home ground. It would like to stay. At the same time, it grows all kinds of mushrooms and plants. It allows animals to rest. That lazy settling down and making ourselves at home and inviting other people to come in and rest as well is Ratna. Well, Ratna is more social. It's more what brings people in, community. It's kind of a Ratna thing. The fourth course is karma. That's the one that's more like wisdom. And karma, basically the word means action, and karma's people are people who really like to do things. They're active, they're action. This is not about karmic debts or consequences. Karma in this case just simply means action. The sense of complete fulfillment of action without being hassled or pushed into neurosis. It is a natural fulfillment of how we relate with our world. In either case, whether we relate to a karma family on a transcendental level or the neurotic level, karma is the energy of efficiency, getting things done. So karma people can be, if they're neurotic, can be a little bit irritable, to get angry over some things. So mix up a little bit with Vasher there. And if we get nothing really to do, then karma people get really restless, edgy, and we get really irritated if you're a karma person with people that are not efficient. The karma person is the one that says, well, let's get it done. And so they really want efficiency. The epitome of the karma family neurosis is wanting to create a uniform world. Even though we may have very little philosophy, very little meditation, very little consciousness, in terms of developing ourselves, we feel that we can handle our world properly. We have composure, we relate properly to the whole world. We are resentful of everyone else who does not see things the same way we do. It's kind of the element of one. And all of these things, I had a list here I was trying to put up on the screen of all the things that qualities these have. And they all have their own colors, form, jewels, etc. So let's see. The last one I have here is Padma. Padma is the one that is really about community. It's the guy that attracts people. Type of person people are usually warm and attractive or attracted to other people. Good to have around if you want to build community. But if it's neurotic, it can be fantastically precise, aware, it can be a little nosy, tremendous interest and inquisitiveness. See, everything is seen in your own distinct way, your particular qualities and characteristics. The wisdom of Padma is discriminating wisdom. So Buddha's more spirituality practice accommodates everything. The neurotic version is a little more elegance, spaced out. Vajra is about study, knowledge, learning, crystal clarity, real life wisdom, intense need for control and aim. Padma is more about the arts, community, relationship, opens to precious each moment, more emotional, and the erotic side is more about desire and attachment. Ratna has to do with livelihood, resources, sustains us in the world. The poverty mentality, if you have the neurotic side of it, you're needy, be prideful. Karma at its best is about service action, all accomplishing action, getting things done. But it can be impatient, we get jealous. So we all relate differently with some of these kinds of ways. So the title of my talk comes from this little book, Instructions to the Cook, by Roshi Glassman. He's a Zen teacher, an interesting guy. I think he got the idea of it from the Shambhala people. Rinpoché is one of the ones that really has done the most with the five Buddha families and talked about it. And one of his students, Irini, Rockwell, wrote a good book if you want to dig in a little deeper. I think it's the five wisdom. I think it's called the five Buddha wisdoms. Many years ago, I think the 13th century, a Zen teacher named Dogen had a teaching called Instructions to the Cook. And basically, it's about how very meticulous you need to be, how to get something done. And Burmi took that in the five Buddha families. And one of the ways I wanted to apply it is we're just rebuilding our center now, we're bringing it back. As you all know, it burned down, I guess it's about 5 years ago now. So what does it take to get something like that done? Well, Bernie created this foundation, the Greystone Foundation. He wanted to solve the problem of homelessness in New York, and so he wanted resources for it. He wanted it to be sort of a Buddhist with a good spiritual base. So after lots of analysis and stuff he goes into in the book, they started Greystone Bakery. And if you like Ben & Jerry's ice creams and their fudge cake ice cream, I think it is, that comes from Greystone Bakeries. So the first thing that Bernie figured they needed was an idea, a plan. And that's bringing in the Vajra family, the planning. And that's what we had to do with rebuilding KTC, is get architects to build it. Now we had the land, but in order to begin cooking a meal, you need to clean the kitchen. And that's basically what we did with the land. We had to clean up all the debris, and then we had several of our Rinpoches come in and bless the land. And this gives us a strong spiritual foundation, strong spiritual home for our place. So we have that, and then we brought in the Vajra, the planning. And then, of course, we needed resources. And that's the Ratna family. That's how we attract money, resources. We got people to donate quite generously. And that's the price and how much it's cost and how much we were able to raise. I think we're over $3 billion. And I just got a little message here. We're asking everyone to always help support the rebuilding of KTC. We have the basic money to get it built, but now we need to furnish the inside, which is going to be another significant hunk of change. So that is right. And then we needed to have the support of the community. We needed to bring the community in. And that's the pod. How you get all that coming together. And then pod, all those kinds of resources. And then we needed to act, and that's the karma family. So using these five Buddha families is sort of a way of thinking about how to get something done. You need to begin with a spiritual base. You need to begin with an idea, a plan. You need to have the resources. You need to have the community. And you need to have the action. So I think that's a nice and useful way to thinking about projects, getting things done. And as you think about these, you can think about some of the ways these families play out in your life. Each of you is probably a little bit more one or the other. Nobody, but all five will come into play sometimes in your life. You need them all. And they interact as sort of a color kind of thing. But Still trying to share that mandala. I get signs here that says it's possible, but it won't work. So no luck on that. That made my talk much harder for me because I want to be able to talk around the mandala much easier. I'm rather scattered to notes. Anyway, I would like to hear some responses from you guys. I know this has been a very disorganized talk. The technical problems really threw me for a loop. Kind of lost my whole train of thought. I had something of a train wreck here. So, anyway, any comments? Just please put them in the chat and try to respond or any other questions. Somebody got the 5 Buddha families up, which is very nice. And that does help. Thank you, host. Get the host out of the way. So you can see in the center is the Buddha family, is the Buddha. It's white. Should be holding the wheel. I'm not sure if it's big enough to see. Somebody wants to know if there's always a primary Buddha family or can a couple be equal in a person? Probably so. Usually one is a little more primary than the other, but I found a little quiz online and I'm like 30% Buddha and 20% 3 others, and it's a bunch of rotten, or karma is the weakest. So, yeah, but they will balance out different ways. Balance out at different times in your life, depending on what you are doing. If you're working on a project, you may need that kind of activate more of your karma family. If you're trying to relate to somebody, then maybe more of your Padma family. And if you're trying to just be a little more settled and more at home, then maybe a little more Buddha would be helpful. The basic way of dealing with the world, of responding to the world, is usually when you have one predominant one and one secondary one. They'll all come into play, they'll all interact. And so it's all it's kind of all good that way. I mean, it's just, we're never anything one. This is our Buddha nature, which we all have. People all have a class on Buddha nature. This is one of the ways that I think about how it expresses itself in our lives. Some into that individual. We're all a little bit different. So we have the Buddha in the center. He deals with ignorance, pure white color, real. Element is water, body is forehead center, throat supported by lions. And he uses the teaching mudra. And how these are organized, they each have their own direction. And how the Tibetans put these things is different than the way we're thinking about looking at a map. Because the Padma family is west, is the one at the top. It's red. God of perception, becomes the place of desire. Discriminating wisdom is his wisdom. In the lotus, That's basically what Padma means, is lotus. The image of a lotus that grows in muddy, swampy water and comes up with this pure white flower. It's a very common Buddhist image. Each is its body center. And then to the north, which is to the right as you look at this, is Karma, Moga city, is the Buddha name. Skanda of intention overcomes the wish of jealousy when he's fully realized. All accomplishing wisdom, color green, holding a double word J, Ashford Family, symbol of indestructibility. And then at the bottom, to the east, is Acharya, Ashford Family, color blue. This kind of consciousness overcomes the glacier of anger, represents fear-like wisdom. This one is an intellectual like to study. And then to the left is Ratna. Ratna is the Buddha family name. And the teachings on this can go on and on. They go lots and lots of lists. Somebody once put Christians love Jesus and Buddhists love lists. We have a zillion. And the list for the Buddhist family, I've read a number of them. And they just have all kinds of qualities, attributes, ways of playing with these if you want to really dig into it. Overcomes the clash of pride, his feeling, holding the precious truth, self-nature is the earth, and he's the one that's attractive. So those are the 5 Buddha families. If you want more, I just mentioned Irini Rockwell's book, The 5 Buddha Wisdoms. The IRINI and the Rockwell should be very self-explanatory. You can also find a short little essay or teaching on these at Thrangu Rinpoche's website. Covers that. Five Buddha families and the 8 consciousness, the transformation of the 8 consciousnesses. It's a short little teaching. The whole thing is about 50 pages long. I think if you want to download it, they want a $1.25 for it. PDF version. And then there's lots of other resources online for these. Teachings can go on and on. Trungpa Rinpoche has, if you're into the Shambhala teachings, he has written a lot about this. Bernie Glassman's book, even though it does not mention the 5 Buddha families, it's an excellent little book about a social action project that really is, I think, very important, good, and very successful. And Bernie is an interesting guy. He was an astrophysicist, working in that, and then somewhere turned into the Dharma, and became a Zen teacher, Zen Roshi. And he's really a bit of a character. You know, one teaching I was at with him, somebody asked him a question, and he responded, "Oh, a serious question." He turned around and put on a red nose and turned back looking at us like a clown. So he has a good perspective on how to take things not too seriously, but he's still a pretty serious guy. And he also leads retreats on the streets, or he did. He died a couple of years ago. But he was very concerned about homelessness. If he really wants to understand homelessness, he ought to try it out. So he and got a bunch of other people to join him on a number of these retreats. And these retreats are still going on. Other people are leading them. Where you spend something like 5 days on the streets. You start out with $10 in your pocket. That's about it. And, lots of little requirements to get into these retreats. He also leads, or had led a retreat every year to Auschwitz in Germany, a concentration camp, where they would spend a week sitting and meditating and reciting the names of victims of the Holocaust, which I've been told is a very, very powerful experience. I'm not sure if anyone is carrying that on. But he's very good. Anyway, with all the interruptions and everything, the technical difficulties, I think I have said everything I need to say. Let's see if there's any comments here. Somebody commented, I see the families are also helpful with dealing with others. I've had incidents in which people seem to have a family in common, like Padma, like that Karma or Vajra person is odd. We understand this type of energy and expression, and it's easier to relate. Yeah, anything that gives us some insight into other people are other in some ways, and that doesn't make them bad. There's nothing wrong with any of these. They all have their sane aspects and their neurotic aspects. And as you become aware of that, you can relate to them a little more intelligently, a little less judgmentally. So you can be a little more open to what you're doing here. So yeah, I think that is a good comment, something to think about. Any of these insights, any way we get to know ourselves better, helps us get to know other people and dealing in the world. And that's kind of what this is all about, is how do we live our life? You know, we all came to the Dharma because we wanted something that we weren't getting quite. Looking for something a little bit more relief from our suffering. As somebody once commented, you know, the word for stuff usually is translated as suffering is dukkha. And thought about all the definitions. Suffering is not, it's probably the standard one, and there's nothing wrong with it. But there's more to it than that. And he finally commented that, you know, a good word for suffering is life, or dukkha is life. Especially when we say something, well, that's life. So that's what dukkha is, that's life. The point of this book, instructions to the book, as Bernie puts it. Somebody asked what's the astrophysics name. It's Bernie Glassman, Bernard Glassman. See that here. Edward Fields. Bernie Glassman is the author of the book. And the more you know, the more you understand about that. That cooking the supreme meal is what he calls it. That's what we really want, is a full and rich life. He begins the book with this good old Zen koan. You're at the top of a 100-foot pole. How do you go on from there? It's beyond the end of a 100-foot pole. And the answer is you live a full life. You cook the supreme meal. You bring all the ingredients, and you learn to use what you have and turn it into a good meal. A good Zen cook, as he puts in the book a number of times, is not a cook that says, we can't have that because we're out of this. It's we have this and this and this, so let's see what we can do with it. We come up with something. That's the challenge, is to work with what you have to make it work. Be present with it. Somebody says, is it accurate to say that by embracing the negative aspects of the five family, we're really further along in accepting our true selves and finding a better version of ourselves? That's kind of what I'm getting out of Bernie Glassman's message. Yeah, you need to embrace them if that's part of who you are. You need to look at that and understand. And it really is, you know, I guess the first noble truth of that there is suffering. Another way of expressing that is acknowledge and embrace life, embrace the whole thing, as remember the Greeks said, movie, the whole catastrophe. And that's what we really need to hold together here, is just embrace life and learn how to work with what we got, work with the cards we've been dealt. And, yeah, I think that's really the point of the whole thing. Somebody's interested in each Buddha's associated with a direction. I'm not quite sure what to say to that in response. The Buddhist teachings always talk somewhat about the mandala. The mandala represents all the directions of the world, and can get into more subtleties. And I'm not sure what they mean. I've never quite gotten into it that deeply. So I'm sorry, I really can't answer that. So we have a few more minutes if there are any more comments or questions. I think in one way, the four directions just point out that we really can't leave anything out. We have to embrace the whole thing. We can't forget about the north and ignore it because it's theirs. And we have to take on the whole thing. Any other comments before I wind it up? We dedicate the merit. Thank you. Somebody found this helpful. I hope I wasn't too confusing today. I usually like to begin and these talks with another little Zen thing, evening prayer, just because I think it's nice. Life and death are matters of supreme importance. Time passes quickly and opportunity is lost. So awaken, awaken. Do not squander your life. Now let's take a moment and reflect a little bit on these and the insights. I'll recite the dedication of merit. By this merit may all become omniscient. May it defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. Courageous Manjushri, who knows everything as it is, Samatbhadra knows it in the same way, and all the Bodhisattva, that I may follow their path. I completely dedicate all this virtue. So thank you. I hope this wasn't too disorganized for you. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the weather.